Hello, everyone, and welcome to exercise 7B. Now, the overall concept of this is an important one. It's a way to connect addresses and address information that you might have in a geodatabase, in a spreadsheet, to an actual map. So you can essentially plot points on the map using the street address or other types of location information. Now, for this particular exercise, when you're geocoding location data, this is something that is changing a lot from version to version. And so the description in the textbook for exercise 7B is quite a bit off from the newer updated ArcGIS Pro versions. So I'm going to show you with my current version and setup how I can work through 7B. Now this particular video, I'm actually only going to go through part of 7B because it is so different. So I'm kind of going to, in this video, get down right here to the on your own and the rematching addresses. Okay. For the rematching addresses, it's a little bit better, but it's still going to be off a bit, as you'll see when we go through the first. And also, I'll be honest, the rematching addresses, while this is the very important part and the realistic part, data is never clean in GIS. And so you oftentimes have to, essentially, it's almost like hand inputting these points. So I'm not going to go over this part in this video. As I said, you can kind of go through it. I'm just going to go through this first part. Okay. So I'll keep referring back here because we need some of this information. But again, things are very different. So the idea, as I said, is that you have a table with addresses and you want to be able to actually plot them on a map. The thing is, again, oftentimes you're using data like the streets that are coming from one place and this information is coming from another. So you kind of have to match it up. And that's where an address locator can be very useful. And I'm not going to get into here. The textbook doesn't either. Different types of address locator styles, or now the new word is roles. But if you continue on with GIS and into becoming a GIS analyst, you really want to understand these different roles, because how you collect data, or if data is given to you, how it's been collected, means you use different roles. Okay, so we are going to continue working with the map from exercise 7. So we're here with our LA census, okay? And again, it says here on the analysis tab, click the tools button. In the geocoding tools toolbox, search for the create address locator tool. Okay, so right there, that's going to be a little different because the address locator tool has been redone. So if you are back here in your map and you go to analysis and open up your tools, if you search again for the address locator, it won't come up. But if you do create locator, you'll see that this comes up. So this is the tool that we're actually going to use. It's very similar, but it's a little different. Okay. So here's where we really begin to separate. For number 3, it says select US addresses, dual ranges from the address locator style drop-down list, and then it gives this. Okay. And if you're actually looking here, you're going to see this does not look that way at all. There is no style. And if you were even to click in the role, you'll see there's nothing that says US dual locator. Again, they start kind of phasing that out. So for us, what you're going to want to do is make sure you have the United States here. Okay. Then what we're going to do, kind of skip this part right here, kind of ignore it for right now. And instead, we're going to click the Browse button next to the Reference Data box. I'll show you where that is. And select the Streets layer from the Community Housing Geodatabase. Okay, so here, again, it's going to look different, but we're looking right here under Primary Tables. And there's other stuff here. There are other ways, but if you click on this little Browse, okay, you want to make sure, depending on what pops up, that you're in the Community Housing Database, the GDB, in your project. Okay, and that's here you can kind of see that it says File Geodatabase, and we want the streets. Okay, so now you have the streets popping up, and if you point to it, it's very long, but it should hopefully be in your GTK folder and in that community housing. All right. So now we have the role. And again, this is where kind of the style was before. We are going to choose street address. Okay. So we've got our primary table here, streets, and we've got our street address. Okay. Now, a lot of things pop up. And again, this is where things go a bit different than the textbook. But again, you're going to notice that it's got some fields here we want to make sure that we're setting, but then there are some other fields that you're going to need to make sure are set that aren't even shown here or mentioned. So I kind of want to walk through that with you. So what I did just to kind of help out a little bit is I opened up the table. Okay. And just so for a minute, we can look at this table. If you go through, right in here is actually the information that we're going to be using for the address. And you'll notice that there is this L from, L to add, right from add, right to add. Okay, and then if you look, you're going to notice zip is zip L, zip R, city L, city R, and then there's a bunch of other stuff here too. And then at the very beginning, you'll notice that we have this kind of object ID. Okay, that's kind of the unique category that tells us that every row or data unit is unique. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and close that back up, get back our geoprocessing. So essentially what we're going to need to do is kind of fill out a few things. First, with this feature ID, you want to map that to object ID. Okay, so feature ID, object ID. Okay, then left house number from, left house number to, right house number from. Again, if you look here in the textbook, you can kind of see they have this to right and everything. That's kind of the similar of what we're using. But what we're going to do is the left house number from. See what this is L from address. So that's the address. Then we want the left house number to. So see where it's left to add. So for the left to address. Okay, then we need the right number from. All right, here R from add. And we need the right house number to. So R to add. Okay, we're going to leave the parodies alone. Now the street name, suffix, full name, and we're going to take from here. So you'll see how they set the prefix and the suffix and the street name and the full name. So these right here, you're going to set the same. So, excuse me. So and I always get these confused. So let me just make sure. I always have to double check. So prefix direction. So dir abbreviation. Prefix type. Again, we want the pre-type abbrev, and let me just double check that because I always get these reversed. Prefix direction, prefix type. Okay, and then, sorry, now I'm keep going back and forth. The street name they have is name. The full street name is full name. So the street name is name. And the full street name is full name. Now we still have to do the suffix type and direction, and be careful because sometimes here you have suffix type and abbreviation, and you have suffix direction. Oops. So suffix type. And then suffix direction. Okay. Now, again, this is not mentioned in a textbook. You don't even see this, but you need to set these as well. Make sure we are going to set the left city. Okay, right here. See how we have L city L. And we're going to set the right city. Okay. And we need the zip. We're not worried about the state or anything like that because remember, we're all looking kind of right here in one area. Where am I? Oh, there I am. So left zip is going to be zip L. And right zip is going to be zip R. And then this stuff we're not going to set. Just make sure. So feature ID, left house number 2. And again, if you look up how to do locator roles, it'll give you a little bit more information on this. Okay. Looks like I have all of that. So now you're going to output and you want to save this as housing locator. And as a note, big note, make sure it is to your community housing project folder, not the geodatabase. So what do we mean by that? Down here, when you browse, okay, see how this says community housing GDB up here? That's bad. All right, I'm going to click on new. You want to make sure that you are in your community housing project folders. Okay, so that you are here in your project folder, and then we're going to use that name. Okay, I'm going to click on save. For language code, change it to English. Again, that's one of the neat things about GIS. You can do this all over the world in all sorts of languages. Okay, now we're going to run. And this may take a few moments. as that is processing. Now again, I'll be honest, since the data files we're working with were made for the original older version of the ArcGIS, and we've had some updates, there may be a few little issues, but we're going to, as soon as this is finished running, in the catalog pane, we're going to expand the locators folder, and you should make sure you see your locator in there. Now, notice I had warnings. Okay, so for right now, do not worry about the warnings. Just come on over here and make sure that you've got your housing address locator. Okay, now next comes the real test to see if the locator worked. We are now going to geocode our addresses using that locator set of instructions, if you will. Okay, so in the catalog pane, expand the community housing folder and add the public housing CSV file to the map, and then open the table. Okay, so folders, community housing, and here I have the public housing, public housing sites. So I'm gonna drag that over here, and then we're gonna open up the table. Okay, so these, again, if you remember our scenario, we're trying to look at the housing and the services. So now we're trying to connect those oranges and reds to see if they're within the services or not. Okay. So now in the contents pane, we're going to right-click the public housing sites that we just added. We're going to click Geocode Table. And then there will be a workflow, but we're just going to click Go to the tool. There's a workflow. We'll scroll down and go to Tool. Now again, things may look a little different. So we want to make sure that the input table should be what we just selected. Then we're going to click the Browse button next to the Input Address Locator box, and we're going to find that locator that we just created. Okay, so here in the Input Locator, we're going to find it. So again, we're here. We're going to click on this, and it should pop up. If it's not, look for your project folder and locators. Now, this pops up, which does not look like this. And again, that's okay. Here's the main thing. As this says multiple field, this is more than one field. So that's okay. This is fine. And then as you go down, you're going to see we didn't define all these different things. That's kind of why we had the warnings before, because we aren't defining everything right now. And it says, now where are we going to save it? AKA the output feature class box. We're going to go to our databases, community housing, and we're going to use the public housing sites as the name. But notice this time we are in the databases. So I'm just going to click here. Okay, see how this came up with databases and community housing. Again, if it didn't, from your project folder, just find the databases, then go to community housing. Now I've already been playing with this. You would, I got wrong. Hang on just a sec. Too many copies. There we go, public housing sites. Okay. Oh my goodness, I don't know why this is not. All right. Again, I can't do public housing sites, so I'm just going to do public housing sites 3. You can just do public housing sites, that's fine. Then we're going to save. Sorry about that. Okay. So once we hit the save button, then we're going to run. And make sure to keep the add output to map after completion. Oops, checked. Okay, so we're down here. I'm going to scroll down and we're going to run. Okay, now I got 90 matched and 1 unmatched. You might get a slightly different number. That's why I said not to worry as much, honestly, about the second part. They had 87 matched and 3 unmatched. So essentially, what'll happen is if you come back here, all right, so we're not going to start the rematch process. And I don't know if you can see it, but we've got our little dots. Okay, so for 7B, this is the main part that I'm interested in. Okay, so what I would like you to do, and again, I'll put this in there, is just if you want, do a screenshot so I can see all of this. So I see this here, I see your dots, and this, again, yours will look a little different because I've been adding a lot of different things here. You can also do and share your project package as well. Okay, so like I said, I'm not going to go through the rematch. If you want to try it, the problem is that some of the ones here might not actually be matched, but you can kind of go through this with the one that is unmatched if you want just to try that process. Like I said, this is the thing that takes a lot of time, which is cleaning data and verifying data. All right, so that's it for 7B. And again, I'll put in there to watch the video and that you only technically need to get down to number 9 right here. All right, take care.